Today on the Freakacast news, we have some good news and we have some bad news. Andrew, which would you prefer first?
Give me the bad news.
All right. Well, as you know, I've been an avid fan of Star Wars: The Clone Wars for the last 5 years. And now that Disney has bought out Lucasfilm, guess what Disney's decided to do? Cancel the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Why? Well,
Because they're Disney.
Because they're Disney. No, actually, it has a lot to do with the fact that because we're going to be getting Episode 7 theoretically about 2015, most likely 2016. They want to put the emphasis in the era that's being portrayed in either TV or films in the post-Return of the Jedi era. Clone Wars definitely takes place a lot earlier than that. You've got your main characters of Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan with all your other extra characters in there, and clearly the new films will not have those characters. So I think what they're trying to do is to start bridging people into those characters. For example, one of the things you got right now in comics, you've got the Star Wars comic title. It takes place during the original trilogy era. You've got Han, Luke, and Leia as your main trio. It really, really sucks, for lack of a better word. And right now I'm kind of like, really, Disney? There's been a number of people that constantly watch the show. In fact, Jimmy Mack on the Forcecast has actually rallied the fans to literally take handwritten letters into, I think it's Bob Iger, the president of Disney, and basically say, look, we absolutely love the show. We don't understand why you're doing this. You need to not cancel this. This is a terrible decision. Please don't take something away it's been done very well. It's been something that the fans will look forward to. And, you know, you have a fan base. You have enough people to validate making this show. Why would you cancel something that's actually popular? I mean, especially since, you know, you've got not just the show, but merchandise. There's tons of merchandise out there that's as a result of the show. It just doesn't seem like a very smart business decision.
No.
But then again, we're not in that position, so...
Now, when you say cancel, they're just going to stop it cold? Or
they're stopping it cold.
So there's going to be no final episode where things get resolved?
No. In fact, the thing is, the crew at Clone Wars would work usually a season or two ahead. So, like, you know, right now, we just finished up Season 5. Well, they've already got Season 6 and probably started work. If they haven't finished Season 6, they would be finishing it up, you know, as far as, like, you know, putting the final touches and that sort of thing. But, like, they've got it all recorded. They've got, you know, the scripts are already written and been, you know, that sort of thing. Probably already started working on Season 7, if they've gotten that far, if they had stories to tell that were that far ahead. And it's kind of, and Disney's just kind of like, we'll figure it out later. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Now, the way that the season ended, if for some reason this is the end of the show, well, that's the last season we got, and we'll have to just accept that as the end, the last episode. And it was a 4-part arc that did get resolved in the 4-part, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, why are you guys doing this? If you want the show to be, and the show did actually start to build to get resolved and that sort of thing, we were expecting that, and which is very rare for a TV show in general. I mean, regardless of what type of show it is, whether it's a sitcom or a cartoon or something like that, you never expect it to have, like, all the character arcs resolved. This was probably the first show I can think of where they were working towards that. And for it to just be stopped cold, it's, for lack of a better phrase, it's a slap in the face to the fans. But like I said, even if you weren't a fan of it, it's just kind of a strange business decision. It's like, why would you cancel a show that people will watch and is popular? Especially with kids, you know? They've also done this, now Disney is not a result of this, but also the cancellation of Young Justice and the Green Lantern animated series. Both only had 2 seasons so far, but actually an interesting twist on those shows, they actually have had a lot of fan support writing in that the Cartoon Network has actually decided not to cancel those shows. In fact, they're like, oh, I guess we should probably bring those back. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, if you have people watching your show and you have enough people watching it, don't cancel it. It really does make me wonder how they get the numbers they think they're getting.
I can actually answer some of that.
Okay,
it's
good.
not going to be very interesting, but
that's
I can
okay.
actually
That's
answer
all right.
that.
I will, as long as there's an answer, I'd be happy with it.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a new way of getting TV results. So
Right.
they're still using Nielsen rating boxes.
And how does that function?
Basically, I don't know exactly. I think you have to, they basically, the Nielsen company, they every year,
Right.
they're the ones who get the ratings.
Okay.
So they send out boxes, essentially, that records people
Right.
and what they watch. and it's a select group. So basically, it's not as a whole. They try to go for what a core or like Middle America core audience thing would be.
Right.
So Nielsen would not target the very young nor the very old, but they want that in their group.
So they're in the middle range.
So they're trying to go for like families. It's people who have a family of 4, let's say.
Right.
So that way they can get a somewhat bigger number. They won't always do that because they want a large scale.
Right.
But it's also, you have to think about numbers where it's not going to be, let's keep it simple. And I'm not good with math, so let's try to keep it simple. Let's say...
Well, I am, so you don't have to keep it simple, but I understand.
Let's break it down to a small number. Let's say they send out for, let's say, a group of, like a population of, let's say, 500 people.
Okay.
They would send out maybe 100 to maybe 200 boxes.
See, that just doesn't seem... It's like...
And I'm guesstimating here.
I just want to point out... I'm going to stop you just for a second. I do want to point out, as a person who is currently teaching statistics... This is why people need math, because if you have a bigger population, guess what? You're going to get a much better result.
Well, again, I'm trying to do it in as simple terms to make it understandable as possible.
Oh, no.
I could be wrong on the exact statistics of it, but I'm trying to give you the general idea.
Oh, no, but what I'm saying is, a good example is, for example, okay, My Little Pony. Okay, their target audience is girls. Clearly, that's not the market that apparently it jumped on, right?
Right.
But yet you have a lot of ratings on that show. It shouldn't matter what your target audience is. If you have an audience, you should keep the show.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I was leading up towards.
Okay.
So let me try to finish.
Okay.
Because I'll get to that. That's a good example, and I'll get to that. So that's how they, and the Nielsen box only works like if it's turned on, and I think some actually, you can't just turn it on and leave the room. It actually records you being there watching the show.
Oh, okay.
So that's part of how it works. I know there's more. I had to learn about this in one of my media classes. That's why I know about this.
I'm glad one of us does.
And there goes my goal of keeping the news segment short, but hey, whatever.
It's informative.
So you have to sit there and watch the whole show, and that counts for a show. So I don't know how they count commercials, but I think they're supposed to. And I think once you have the box, you have to sign some agreement where if you agree to watch a certain amount to fill your quota, because some of them are electronic.
Okay.
Some are still handwritten. And that's how they get their numbers. That's the only way currently that they get their numbers. Now, for a show like My Little Pony, their first season they didn't know.
Right.
They put up the show and had the intention with the reason why the show works is because they intended it to not just be for little girls, but with the idea of someone's going to be with those kids watching the show, so let's make it so that everybody can enjoy it.
Right.
And that's why it worked, because it was written with a much higher scale, but worked for everybody.
And as we've talked about before, shows that are written with that intent usually fare better.
Right, and then it was only like during that season that they were running, and then full blown during the season 2 and 3 did they realize they had a huge audience.
Okay.
Because that's when they started getting fan feedback, not from the Nielsen ratings.
Right.
And they had to figure it out because they were saying, okay, we're getting a lot of people watching it on YouTube, and we're getting a lot of people coming to the Hub website, and even going to Hasbro.
And I'm really glad you bring that up because...
But let me finish.
Okay.
Sorry. And at the moment, they don't have ways to count that.
Right.
So
they do and
maybe
they don't.
People,
they do and they don't.
So maybe people who are watching Clone Wars on TiVo, which I don't know how that works for Nielsen.
I don't really know how that works either.
So I don't know if that's been taken into... I'm sure TiVo must be included in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But YouTube and the online watching at the moment is the biggest iffy for figuring out who is watching.
Well, here's what I don't get.
And that's what they're looking at. Yes.
Here's what I really don't get. It doesn't cost the company anything, not a thing, to put it on their website, right?
Yes.
Okay, they're already on the website. They're just uploading the footage, okay? As opposed to selling it to a network and that sort of thing. But what I don't get is, for example, Star Wars website. That's where I've been watching Clone Wars for the last 5 years, basically. 4 years, or, however long, because a lot of times I haven't been home to watch it when it's come on. Okay, or recently I didn't have cable, so I was watching it online. You can count the amount of downloads. A website can count the amount of downloads. To me, it's like, well, if you, YouTube, you can count the amount of likes, you can count the amount of views, right?
True, but as someone else asked, it's not totally reliable. It's not reliable data.
But it's going to give you a better number than the Nielsen ratings, correct?
Again, I don't know exactly how they find it, and I think some of it is, I think their current worry is the fact that you can artificially inflate a YouTube view and like.
I suppose that's true.
And that has happened. That's how people who make a living off YouTube do sometimes. Not everybody, but there's people who artificially inflate the numbers to make it seem higher. So that's why at the moment it's not reliable data.
I gotcha. But
I think it's going to be part of the future because again, My Little Pony is a perfect example.
Yeah.
And it's a good show. I've watched it.
Yeah.
I don't care what you guys say.
So have I.
And it's a perfectly good example because once they figured out that they had that audience, they ran with it.
Yeah.
And trust me, it was a good thing they did.
Yeah. Because
one, it's the Hub's most popular show.
Yeah.
And two, Hasbro's been around forever and they've had My Little Pony for a long time, but this current incarnation is doing them the most business they have next to, their G.I. Joe, like Transformers and G.I. Joe. So they never let go of that market, but they finally found their true stride with that particular product.
Well, and especially with the fact, anytime you take something older and you want to try to reinvent it, I think they did a really good job with reinventing it.
And not only that, but they've also found they found this outlet to be their perfect connector to the fans because they've, for the most part, like when people write their stuff or put things on YouTube or do animations of their own or drawings, Hasbro has been like, keep them coming.
Yeah.
We love it. We love you guys that love our stuff. Please.
And you know what? I'm really glad that Hasbro has that attitude because that's the same attitude Lucasfilm has had. Of, hey, if you like it and you're demonstrating your appreciation for it, bring it, Why are we going to stomp you guys for appreciating our stuff and you're demonstrating it in a way that you are able to?
Right. So that would be my only that's how Nielsen works. So it's all about data. So for the people who are way high up, who aren't as connected, who are just focusing just on the data,
right?
They're the ones who are going to be making the call.
Well,
so it has to be. And I encourage people who want to write in because, as we've seen with the Young Justice and Green Lantern and other shows, fan support. If you hit the right people, they will say, "Hey, it's got fans. Put it back in."
Yeah.
But based on, just when the people looking at whose job it is to look just at the data and seeing is it cost effective? Are we getting enough views? Are we, is it going to work out if we want to do products and stuff like that? The people who that's their job, they only look at the numbers.
Yeah. And regardless of whether you're looking at the numbers or whether you look at the fan feedback.
I'm sorry if I bored anybody.
That's all right. I wasn't bored, actually. I think you did a very good job of streamlining it and making it very understandable. It's really a crappy way of doing it because you're not getting the right numbers. Now, obviously, right now, regardless of whether you do Nielsen ratings or YouTube views or whatever, you're still not getting the true numbers. But I do think, and you probably agree with me, I do think in the future, hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see a much more improvement. And I do think we're going to see a lot more online viewings.
And I think that's definitely going to be heading in that direction with so many people streaming stuff.
I honestly
so many
think
people recording things and watching it later and going on YouTube.
What I'm thinking? This is going to sound really weird, but honestly,
why not? This is the show for weird.
But as we're talking about this, I could see the death of TV in the next 20 years. I think the idea of turning a channel on and watching it is going to be gone in the next 20 years. Simply because of that. Because with the fact that everyone's streaming and you can watch what you want when you want, and I think companies will figure out a better way to generate their ratings and the numbers of viewings they are going to get through the internet use because it is easier because everyone's connected directly to their computer. You're going on the web and everything.
Well, if that happens, that means there's going to be more commercials in the stream.
Well, there already are commercials.
But there will be more of them.
Oh, there will be more commercials.
Because the advertising companies have to have that revenue.
Yeah, because it's the advertising company's revenue that, promote it. It is.
So there's the trade-off, folks.
But you know what? We remember most of the commercials we watched when we were kids, so by God, I think that's going to happen for the next generation too.
All right, let's move on.
Anyway, that was a good one. But we're kind of ending on a high note when we started on a down note.
Yes.
So anyway, moving on, we've got Iron Man 3 coming up at the beginning of next month. I'm highly, highly, highly looking forward to it. I imagine you've seen at least one or two of the previews.
Yes.
The Mandarin looks like a good, solid villain. I think it's going to be something different from what we've seen before. One thing I can definitely say from the incarnation we're seeing is they're still kind of doing the idea of the terrorist, which you saw with the Joker and Bane. And I think, or even with Ra's al Ghul, I think that's just kind of the new supervillain. And because, when you put it in modern day, it was like, well, what are we really afraid of? It's somebody who's doing something just to do it, and they're doing it on a large scale. So I think that's what we're going to start to see. Another thing that Marvel has got in the works, is going to be coming out either next year or the year after that, is another team-up film called Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with this at all.
Neither am I.
However, you are familiar with one of the actors.
Okay.
They cast Batista.
Nice.
As I don't honestly know the guy's name. Because
I don't know who.
Well, the thing is, if you gave me a picture, it'd be like, oh, it's that guy, because he's this big, bulky guy, and he's like the muscle man of the group.
Tree?
I'm not sure. It's a green guy, I think.
Drax the Destroyer.
Yeah, he's going to be playing. Thank you, William. Drax the Destroyer is what Batista will be playing.
Okay, that
So,
should be interesting.
Yeah, he looks the part. I've seen the guy's picture. I've seen the character pictures. You pretty much the face looks almost identical. So I think they cast it well. And of course, working in professional wrestling, he's no stranger to acting and stunts and that sort of thing. So he'll fit right in. It's very much a more cosmic. Basically, think superheroes in space. Only it's kind of more
Superheroes in
space, but not quite as cheesy as we're making it out to be. It's kind of like these.
I'd go see a cheesy superhero movie in space.
Yeah, I mean, I would too, but I'm just saying, yeah, this isn't going to be as cheesy as we're making it out. Kind of think in terms of the vein of in terms of the tone of Star Wars, action adventure with fun.
Okay.
So
I'm up for that.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
Even though I have no idea what Guardians of the Galaxy is, I'm up for that.
But it's got Batista in it. And then the other two, I guess they call them the Phase 2 Marvel movies, are Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which just got released, that Robert Redford will be playing the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. They didn't say director, they said head of. So I think that basically means he's going to be like Sam Jackson's boss, which I could see Sam Jackson working for Robert Redford. I think the man would give him that much credibility. And the interesting thing about that film is, with the first Captain America movie, it kind of had an action-adventure war movie feel to it. They've already kind of came out and said that The Winter Soldier will have more of a political thriller feel to it. And of course, people are like, oh, political thriller, now it's going to get political. It's like, no, it's going to play out like a Tom Clancy novel, or Tom Clancy movie. A good example, one of my favorites, Air Force One. That's a political thriller. But it's got action beats, it's got, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a little bit more of a...
Plus Harrison Ford's like,
Get off my plane! One of the best lines in movie history. One of the best. So I think it's going to be neat to see.
That's almost all I remember from that movie. That and people going out in parachutes.
That's all you really need to remember for that movie. And it's got Gary Oldman in it, who plays the bad guy. So I'm excited to see a different type of movie with a similar character we've seen before. So I'm it's all right, shaping up pretty good. The one that I am surprisingly looking forward to the most out of these Marvel films is Thor: The Dark World. I know very little about it just because they haven't released a lot, other than kind of what I've said before about having more of a fantasy element. They're going through the other realms. This is something I think Thor's going to really play up really well. The guy that's directing it, I don't remember his name, but he's the same guy that's been directing the Game of Thrones. So if you're familiar with the Game of Thrones TV show, you can expect that sensibility in Thor: The Dark World. And from the little bit I know about Game of Thrones, which is kind of like it's a TV show that takes place in medieval fantasy world, well, there you go. He's going to fit in really well directing a fantasy story about, it's going to have a cosmic feel to it because it's kind of space and that sort of thing, but it's not really space. It's other dimensions or whatever. But yeah. I think it's going to play out really well, and I just like how different the Thor mythology is from some of the other stuff. Next on the list, because I wanted to say this one, is Man of Steel. Got Man of Steel coming up. I'm excited about that. There's been some early viewings, and I know that you've had some reservations before about, it looks kind of slow and lots of slow motion shots. And, well, Matt, you kind of been dropping the ball and pumping this one up. However, this review comes in, and it's not much, but it does kind of get you a better idea. It says, imagine a Nolan story with Snyder effects / action, which already I'm like, sounds awesome. It's going to be the best movie of the year. There's tons of action with Superman kicking all kinds of ass in his suit. That's what we want to see more than anything.
That's what we want to see.
That's what we want to see. It also says the cape is CG'd most of the time so it can look awesome. And, I know some people are like, oh, it's CG, it's going to look crappy. And it's like, look, sometimes from a technical standpoint, if it's easier to do the cape CG, if you're doing a fight scene and, you don't want to get the cape messed up or something, I understand that. Yeah, as I've said before, the suit is definitely going to be Kryptonian. It's not something that was handmade on Earth. This is definitely a Kryptonian suit. So it's alien. Therefore, his cape should be different. It should not be just regular fabric. I get that. One of the things, and I think here's part of why you've had reservations, because Chris Nolan is a master at showing you very, very little in the trailers. Mm-hmm. Well, they've been doing that with the Man of Steel trailers, and so we've been kind of getting, it's like, okay, I didn't even know that was a Superman movie until the very end when I saw the S. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one was a little bit better, except all the action scenes had no sound effects and just very slow music behind them. That was not really getting me excited. But they're giving you a taste. And they're really giving you a true taste because I've seen a lot of trailers where they tell me the entire movie in the trailer. I was like, okay, I'll pass because I've seen it.
Yeah.
One good thing about Chris Nolan movies is he doesn't do any of that.
He's like a magician.
He is, which is part of the reason why it made sense for him to make a movie about the Prestige with magicians. So they've intentionally left out most of the action in the trailers to save it. Because they want you to have the right experience when you see the film. Excuse me. They say it's also not as dour and as serious as the trailers suggest. And I think that's partially because they're trying to, I think part of it, honestly, is a marketing tool. They're saying, you know what? You like Chris Nolan's movies. His are usually pretty serious. You'll probably like this too. I get that. They're using Chris Nolan's name to kind of help promote the film. That makes sense. It says movie is complete. They're just kind of, they've got it scored. They've got it edited. It's ready to go. And quite honestly, I think that was remember originally we were supposed to have the movie come out in December of last year. And it said they pushed up to June. Looking back, I think it was a really smart decision. That way, yeah, it's done, but now we can breathe. Now we're not having to cram it to get it done. Take our time. Hey, we got it done. Okay, it's ready to go. Come June, pop it in, make a ton of cash.
And I can remember the date for this one because it comes out my birthday, June 14th.
June 14th. And I don't know if I'm going to be here to see it. I'm going to be quite upset. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to be able to see any of these movies with you. Just because of when they come out. But the nice thing is...
There's always DVD.
There is always DVD. But the nice thing is, a Superman movie coming out on your birthday, how awesome is that?
I'll have that day off, so I might go.
Yeah. You should definitely go with your dad.
He'd like it.
He would. And as you have Man of Steel, there's a couple things I do want to promote. I've seen some shots, as Lego does DC, all the superheroes now. They've taken them all and said, hey, we're going to make them all because that's just way too awesome. If we have one, we should have them all. So they've actually done Man of Steel Legos, and I got to say, these look pretty awesome. Because they're really playing up the alien aspect. Like, you see Kryptonian ships with, like, Zod and some of his cronies. And I'm like, I'm already getting excited about the movie just from seeing the Lego sets. I'm like, dude, we're going to get, like, alien battles on Earth with Superman. And that's how they're playing. They're playing the film off, like, a first contact. Like, what if aliens came, and this was the first time we're experiencing it? And, there's this one who's actually trying to help us and trying to, like, wait, huh? I think that's going to be an interesting angle. And to see that in Lego form is even better.
And we got this guy with this killer beard over there going, you will build before Zod!
Okay, that's going up. That's going up soon. That is going up soon. You just gave me an awesome idea. I also have some other interesting news tagging off the Man of Steel.
Oh, I love that thing.
Oh, yeah.
We were on a roll that one time.
Oh, yeah. Play dead before Zod. Roll over before Zod.
Stop, drop, and roll before Zod.
Do your homework before Zod. Get up before Zod? No, I don't think so. Nobody gets up before Zod. That never gets old. It's always nice to revisit old jokes.
What is with all this dirt? Why is there sod before Zod? You, in the gym, no more killer bods in front of this Zod. Fast car, hot rod before Zod.
And then what happens if you get Flash in
I'm
with
sorry,
Superman?
I'm done.
You get Grodd before Zod. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So
I don't know, man. I'm just going to smile and nod before Zod.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Anyway.
Okay, that was the last one. I'm done, I swear.
Before we get on a roll again. Go to the wharf and eat some cob before Zod. Anyway.
Sorry, Zod, I'm a vegetarian. You were a clod before Zod.
They don't all have to rhyme, you guys.
No, but it's fun.
It's funny though that way. Anyway. Anyway.
You will not interrupt before Zod.
But you're not Zod.
It's true.
So anyway, back to the Man of Steel. Anyway, back to the Man of Steel. Now this one came as an interesting shock, and we're still not know what to deal with this information or whether, it's got to come to pass before we can really say anything of it. Early reviews are very positive. It will not be a surprise to anybody in the know if Man of Steel does incredibly well at the box office. You've got Chris Nolan's name attached to it. It's Superman right there. I mean, and like I said,
and you have I forgot the director's
you've got
name.
Zack Snyder.
And you have Zack Snyder's name attached to it.
And you've also got Russell Crowe in it. You've got Kevin Costner. You got some big name people. So there would be no surprise if it does incredibly well at the box office. Therefore, they will make a sequel, most likely. Okay? Well, the other interesting thing about this is you've had a very successful Batman franchise for a while. You also had another company, Marvel, do a number of solo films leading up to the Avengers, and the Avengers did almost at least $1 billion, like $1.5 billion, I think. Obviously, we've talked about the fact that DC wants to get on board with that, do a Justice League film.
Oh, they are chomping on the bit for that.
Well, and the thing is, and it really, most people think that this is something new. No, DC's been wanting to do a Justice League film since
forever.
Forever. In fact, they actually have an almost made-for-TV one from the 90s, which is incredibly crappy, but at least they made it.
At least they had a decent cartoon.
Yeah, they did.
Not counting Super Friends.
Oh, no. I mean, the Justice League animated, it was great.
But out with the news, man.
But anyway, well, it has been said. I can't even say it's been rumored because it's this came from El Latino Review or something, which is a very reputable site that people can usually trust. It said that Christian Bale will reprise his role as Batman alongside Henry Cavill's Superman. Henry Cavill's, of course, playing him in Man of Steel, for not necessarily a Justice League film, but for a World's Finest, where it's a Superman-Batman team-up. We've talked about before how a Superman-Batman team-up is really enough of a draw to get people into the theater.
Yeah, because it's never been done like
that. It's never been done, but it's also, you're talking Superman and Batman.
Two of the biggest names.
The two biggest superhero names ever. I'm sorry, Marvel and DC, but after Superman and Batman, everyone else is just another guy. For the most part, because they've been around the longest primarily. And they're the most well-known. Okay?
I would say Spider-Man would be a third.
Oh, yeah, Spider-Man's a third, but I'm just saying as far as your top two, there's that. But yeah, Spider-Man's definitely a third. So they definitely have an interest there. Well, why would you bring Christian Bale back? Well, because you have an already established character, an already established franchise. Now, there's been talks on modern media. I've kind of put it together myself. It's look, and people are but wait a minute, didn't the events of Dark Knight Rises kind of leave it so that he can't? Well, and it's and then people are wait a minute, if it takes place during the events of the Dark Knight trilogy, then why didn't Superman just fly in at the end of Dark Knight Rises and help him out? Well, that would all be taken care of if you have it set in the future after the events of Dark Knight Rises. And they've theorized on, okay, what about John Blake? Well, what if for some reason John Blake is incapacitated and Bruce has to come back and all that stuff? So there's ways you can do it. I would say, look, it's going to be directed. It's supposed to be directed by Zack Snyder, written by David Goyer, and produced by Christopher Nolan. That's the same trio that's making Man of Steel. I have no doubt that they will answer all these questions if this comes to pass. Right now, it's like it's been said. However, Warner Brothers has not debunked it. So it's kind of like, well, there's something here. Maybe we're not getting the full story. Maybe there's other stuff.
It's they've neither confirmed nor denied.
Right. Exactly. So we're kind of waiting to see. But in either case, I would be interested in it because if it was done well.
Well, of course you'd be interested in it.
Well, of course I would. But I'm saying if it wasn't done well, I wouldn't be. I've actually, the more that I think about it, oddly enough, this is going to sound weird, I actually do not want a Justice League film. And it's because I would prefer just solo franchises. Taking care of just Batman and Superman team up, well, that's kind of like a solo franchise. You just have two guys. And if you just have your two main characters, they can carry a film together, and I'd be on board with that. But I think you still have to, there's some stuff there. The other thing that's been talks, and actually been started to be put together, is a Justice League Dark film. Now, I know you're not as familiar with the characters. You might be, William. But Justice League Dark involves characters like Constantine, Deadman, Etrigan, Zatanna, and there's a fifth one that I'm thinking that's there, but I don't know the name of it. But it's basically all your supernatural DC characters. And if you're going to go supernatural and kind of in the weirder realm, and you need a director who's very accustomed to working in the weird and the supernatural and the dark and that sort of thing, who would be at the top of your list and not Tim Burton?
Well, that was my answer.
Okay, Tim Burton. But there's another director you're familiar with. Guillermo del Toro, who did Pan's Labyrinth, the two Hellboy movies, Blade 2. And he's actually on board to direct it. In fact, it was kind of his idea. So he's on board to direct it and everything.
Well, here's how not in the know I am.
Yeah.
I didn't even know Constantine was based on a comic book character. I just knew it from the one Keanu Reeves movie.
Yeah.
Which I thought was okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. It got a little weird just because I wasn't following some of it. But, that was pre-Andrew Film 101. So I kind of null and void any all experiences before I met you when it comes to movies in terms of what I understood and that sort of thing. But anyway, unless you have anything else to add, that will do it for the Freakacast news. Thank you for being patient and sticking us out with all that one.
Yeah, we had a lot to say, apparently.
Like kneel before Zod, and roll over before Zod, and goodbye before Zod.
Freaks out before Zod.
Terror that comes in the night. Terror that you can't hide away from. Terror in the forms of tornadoes and hurricanes and pestilence and famine and clearing away and giving room to sunny highs and a nice afternoon of about 72 degrees with, I think, a low of 56. Back to you, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Felson.
And I'm Matthew Puetz. And today we have with us
William Brust.
Hello, William. Glad you could be here with us today on
The Freakacast!
Yes!
And, this is going to be a mishmash episode.
Yeah,
that's the title of the episode.
It is, yeah, because honestly, it's not so much that we couldn't come up with an idea, but we had some ideas that we really didn't feel like would cover a whole episode, so we just kind of put them all together.
Right, so this is basically the only way I would be able to talk about certain topics that I like, but know for a fact I would never be able to fill up almost an hour's worth of content for.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, well, that's it, really.
Talk for maybe 10, 15 minutes? Okay, that's that.
It depends. Like, some things just don't have enough content to talk about. Some things I like but don't know that much about.
Yeah.
And some things you can only make so many comments on.
Yeah.
That's very true. It's very true.
Something else I should have put on the list. But you guys aren't comic book fans, so you wouldn't quite.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll touch on that at the end if we have some time. Anyway, today... And this is a topic that this is probably a first here on the Freakacast.
Yes.
We have a topic that we're going to talk about in a second, where Andrew absolutely hates it, William absolutely loves it, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm okay with it.
And not to be, disliking of things that people have debates on. I'm sure in the future, Matt and I will be talking about something that he'll feel really strongly about one way and I'll feel really strongly about the other way.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm open for that. But I know coming soon, I don't know when, don't know where, but I'll be talking about RPGs.
Yeah.
I love them. He doesn't care so much for them.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting episode.
Yes, it will.
For that very reason.
Yes, it will.
And whenever we talk about James Bond, he'll be really for it. I'll be like, eh.
Yeah, because your experience was so different from that. So, but we have different experiences.
But
we have different opinions. Now,
on to this topic.
We are going to talk about this, and we're going to do it in a calm, collected, civilized manner. So no axe throwing.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Okay.
Let me give you guys some backstory. See, our world is in peril. Gaia, the spirit of the earth, can no longer stand the terrible conflict that is raging across our planet.
Now here's my interesting point. Okay, who is this Gaia? Is she like Mother Earth? Because I'm already confused.
Say what the topic is.
I think people know by now we're going to talk about Captain Planet.
Captain Planet, he is a hero.
Yes.
Going to take pollution down to the zero, although oddly enough, never did.
That's true. He never actually did eradicate pollution completely. He just kind of cleaned up the little mess that was there and moved on.
Of course, he's such a pansy. All you have to do is throw a banana peel at him, and he's on the ground in a fetal position until someone throws water on him.
Now, the interesting thing, have you seen the Don Cheadle videos where he plays Captain Planet?
No.
Oh man.
Oh, this is a Captain Planet that doesn't take crap from anybody. In fact,
what part of not like Captain Planet didn't you get?
Yes, but
you would like this.
You would like this because this is a vengeful Captain Planet that starts just killing people.
He turns everyone into trees.
Yes.
Basically.
Okay.
It's like a 4-part storyline.
Yes.
Of Captain Planet slowly going mad with his own power, basically.
Which I would totally watch. In fact, they made it as a video, so that's what. But it's one of those things where they took that, and I think what they did is they said, it's kind of a silly idea. Let's actually make it entertaining.
What are the breakthrough?
I know.
For those of you who aren't familiar, Captain Planet was a show that came on in the early 90s.
Yep.
About these team of 5 teenagers who each had a ring that would allow them to summon Earth's greatest champion, Captain Planet.
Well, actually, that wasn't that was one of the effects of the ring, but the main purpose of the ring was to give them a power over a certain element. For instance, you had Wheeler with the power of fire. You had Mati with the power... Wait, was it Mati or...
Mati had heart.
Mati had heart, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Linka had wind.
Linka had wind, or Vind, as she always said. She's like, Vind! It's not working. Wind.
Another...
Why won't it work? I think I know the answer.
Yi had water, and a very difficult to pronounce name.
Yeah.
And you had... Look, there's someone leaving out.
There is someone, but we don't know his name.
Kwame from Africa.
Okay, Kwame from Africa, who had the power of Earth. And, quite honestly, if I had a ring... I always liked Wheeler, because he could shoot fire out of his ring. I thought that was pretty cool. And, Kwame could make, the Earth just, rise and fall however he needed it.
Earthquakes,
sort of thing. The power of wind was kind of neat, depending upon how it was... it wasn't quite like an airbender.
Linka usually wrapped people up in paper. At least he did that in the intro to the cartoon.
Yeah, which I was like, wait.
The cartoon kind of followed the 80s style of things where the intro was 10 times better than the actual cartoon.
Yes,
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
But that's probably why William and I actually enjoyed it, is because we weren't quite as... I don't know. I don't really remember much from the show. But I remember the intro. But no, to kind of set this up a little bit, it was a very, for lack of a better word, self-effacing show. It was the purpose of the show was to promote, ecology, recycling and ecology and that sort of thing.
Environmentalism.
Right.
I can't say that word today.
Yeah. What he said.
Taking care of the environment.
And quite honestly, if you're going to approach that, and this now to the show's credit, they thought, Carmen Sandiego worked really well. We were able to teach kids geography through a TV show, through a video game. Why can't we do this with ecology? Well, as we've seen, part of that is because it's really, really hard to take an idea of ecology that is a serious idea and make it kid-friendly without it becoming cheesy.
And cheesy it was.
Yes, it was cheesy. And you know what? It's okay to say it was cheesy. That doesn't mean...
Oh, no, it was definitely cheesy because you had to basically, the only way to do a show like that, if you're going to give these kids superpowers, it has to be a good versus evil thing.
Right.
But in the real world, I mean, there are no snoggish Greeleys and snidely whiplash guys twirling their mustaches saying, I'm going to dump all this oil into the Pacific Ocean on purpose.
Right.
Like,
that doesn't
believe
happen.
it or not, folks, BP did not plan on that gigantic oil spill. They did not want it to happen.
They weren't on the boat cackling madly going, look what I've done! Where's your Captain Planet now?
In fact, more they were like, oh, great, now we just lost a ton of money and we messed up the ocean. Great. Real great.
Now, don't get me wrong. They definitely don't want us to have solar cars.
Yes.
But they definitely don't want to lose crude oil either.
Right.
So it's one of those things. Plus, you have to keep in mind, guys like loggers, even poachers, who I am against, obviously, poachers, and poaching.
Right.
But a lot of these people turn to that as a way to feed their families because they live in these impoverished parts of the world. It's all an interconnected web of stuff that Captain Planet turned into. Hey, that guy's trying to catch a koala bear. Let's light him on fire.
Yeah.
Okay. Which, as a 6-year-old,
was cool.
Yes. So that's exactly what
that never actually happened. It was like, let me light something very small next to him to scare him away.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, Guy, get some water on that. I can't. There's no water around me. Therefore, my ring doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like, why give her a super ring that has limitations?
Yeah. Now I would agree. I think
which is bull because technically there's water everywhere.
Yeah. Even if it came from like 50, 60 feet below the ground, there's still water.
She had to be around a body of water for that thing to work.
I would have loved to see an episode where Guy is like under attack and all the other Planeteers are just knocked out and the bag is like, what are you going to do, Guy? We're in the desert. She's like, yeah, you're right. We are in the desert. Our 80% water. Die! You bad people!
And what are you going to do, Guy? By the way, your name's also the word for a karate uniform.
Yeah, she had a weird name. I didn't know if I think she was supposed to be from Vietnam. I know Linka, it was interesting.
No, they made it as...
They just made it as generic as possible.
She's from Asia.
Southeast Asia.
Like the other dude is from Africa. Well, Africa's a pretty big place.
It is a big
In fact, if you're from South Africa, you're white.
Except they never said South Africa. They just said Africa.
Black people in South Africa.
Of course there are. There's black people everywhere.
But there's a higher white population because of the British
there's a higher black... Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
In fact, I actually had a student of mine a few years ago.
Not to sound mean, and I'm just repeating what I've heard, which may not be racist, but from what I've heard, all the rich people live in South Africa.
There are a lot of rich people in South Africa, and they are all emigrating here.
But rich is also
that's a story for another time.
That's also a relative thing, so who knows?
And it's all based on hearsay or whatever.
The thing is, I always thought that the idea, the concept was pretty good. You have 5 individuals all around the world who pick up these rings, and they each one have a different ability. One can control fire, one can control the earth, one can control water, one can control air or wind, and one can control people's emotions. Now, the heart one...
Crap power.
I know. I'm sorry.
You have to look at how he used the power.
You have to... Well, you didn't
if he ever did.
Yeah.
Hold on. Pause.
Yeah.
Pause
Let's
for a
just
second.
put this on pause.
One, I think the only reason why this show ran for as long as it did was because it was the time frame. It was the only thing on at the time.
Yeah. Well, another thing.
I actually did watch some episodes, so I do know what I'm talking about. There were a lot of episodes where the only time he used that heart power was to summon Captain Planet.
Yeah.
Other than that, he said nothing.
Yeah. That is true.
Of relevance.
That's right.
Everyone else got to use her ring a couple times. It was like, hey,
I'm not disagreeing.
call me, make a shield of brick. Of dirt.
Brick, yeah.
Bring it up. Awesome. Wheeler, set that bush on fire and do some other stuff.
Yeah.
Mati, you have a monkey. Anyway.
Mati had a specific burden. You have to understand.
He did have a specific burden, but it was also how it was handled. You have a ring that can just make people feel good.
It's not that's
not... No, that's what it was. It was heart. Okay? If it was...
I remember it was also like his way of it was the in-team walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Like he could communicate with everybody.
He used that whenever the Planeteers got captured. Okay?
Yeah.
Mati would use
Which was often.
Yeah.
Because Wheeler kept forgetting he could just trying to swear. Sorry. Light stuff on fire.
Thanks for making me have to work on my editing.
These things happen. These
okay.
things happen.
Well, if
It's
you hadn't
okay.
made me wait 45 minutes before we started.
That's
It's his
okay.
fault.
That's all right. Anyway, back to the in-flight movie. The idea of the heart ring is obviously up for controversy. And I think we're all in the same boat of, okay, clearly the idea of either making people feel good or only being used to summon Captain Planet is really stupid. I'm sorry, it's really stupid. However,
Couldn't they have picked something better?
William did, before the show, William did bring up the idea. He said, you know what, it's a form of mind control. Had it been used for the purpose of mind control...
Mati, if you would just let me make my point
Okay.
instead of constantly letting Andrew dump all over the show.
Sorry.
Well, this is partly my show.
Yeah, and it's
I
his,
know.
it's his job. He dumps on me on the show sometimes, so it's I gotta share the love.
It helps keep things interesting.
It does. Anyway, continue.
I just want the viewers to know what the second half of my sentence
Anyway.
We don't have viewers. We have listeners.
We have listeners.
That's what I said. Rewind, folks.
Okay, go back to the 90s and find out what Rewind was.
Has a burden, you know?
Uh-huh.
With great power comes great responsibility.
No. We are not
With
making the
his-
comparison to Monty with a ring that makes
He
people feel good to
knew
Spider-Man.
that his power could be greatly abused. He could have coerced the other
Yes.
Planeteers into giving him
Because
anything
somebody might create world peace, and that would be bad. Because then there would be no bad guys to fight.
Yeah, Monty was also sadistic. But he was very careful about when he used his powers. And
Anyway,
I don't want to talk about Captain Planet anymore.
okay.
You know, if you had that power, couldn't you use like, hey, pig guy, whatever your name was, you know, you kind of ruined a lot of stuff. Therefore, mind erase. Hey, you're good now, okay?
Yeah.
Problem solved.
I don't
Well,
think
that's
he
what
had
I'm
a
saying.
mind erase power.
If you had absolute mind control with the power of heart, as you were
I
suggesting,
think he was afraid of becoming a Dark Lord.
No, I don't think so. I think it was just a stupid power.
like, look, I know you kind of blew on your resources on earth, wind, fire, water.
Yeah.
You could have stretched and picked something else. Electricity, lightning.
Well, and the thing is, I don't even mind.
Shoot lightning out a ring. That'd be awesome.
I understand that you need to have those four elements, but the world, our society has heart. That's what keeps people going. At the same time, how do you demonstrate that in a show designed for kids? Well, use mind control. You know, that way, but maybe it has a limited use or something like that.
Well, I think, you know, if you're trying to make him a good guy,
Yeah.
mind control is inherently something
bad
evil
thing.
because it goes against your power of free will.
And that's what I'm saying.
Which makes
he
us
was
human.
using a lighter form of it so that he didn't go...
Right.
You know, once
But
you
it wasn't
start down
but
the dark path...
it wasn't demonstrated very well. And I think that's where the problem came. Had it been simply called heart but used as mind control, we probably would have been okay with it. I say probably. But at least then it would have been easier to take. Instead, it was
dwelled
just...
so long on the Planeteers and not on Captain Planet himself is kind of amusing.
Well, the thing is, let's think about this. Captain Planet didn't show up until the last 5 minutes of the episode. Only when it was like, oh,
He never
there's a
really
giant
did
oil spill.
anything. He just sort of flew around.
He flew
and-
around and like cleaned up whatever mess the Planeteers got into and said, the power is yours.
I never
It's
understood
like, well,
why
the
he
power
didn't
is
just
ours. How
say
come
it.
you have it?
Yeah. That's why I never understood.
And
like,
why are you
Captain
so
Planet would
weak?
only
Because, like,
show
as I
up.
said, there have been episodes.
You can just dump garbage on Captain Planet.
And he'd be in the fetal position until
Yeah.
you dumped clean water on him.
Exactly.
So it's like, wow, you're kind of a pansy.
Yeah. Captain
The
Planet.
only thing I kind of remember that made it okay at the time when in high school when we got our class rings and everyone picked Planeteer rings. And I was like, you know what? I do remember there was an episode they had anti-Planeteer rings. I'm going to be one of them. So my class ring was Smog.
Just an evil,
That is-
evil man.
No, he's not. He just like the show. And quite honestly, I can understand why you like it. I can understand why you dislike it.
It was too PC and too preachy.
I think for me, I have a fondness only because I was young when I saw it. And so it's more of a nostalgia of, hey, that's something I grew up with. Which is why I'm okay with it. You know, it's not something I could say, yeah, it still holds up. No, it doesn't hold up.
No.
It's definitely
Oh, no, it doesn't hold
It's
up.
definitely a late 80s, early 90s show. It's very preachy. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they were using bad guys like Pig Guy who, you know, dumps oil in the plane just because he's like, he wants to. That's really stupid and lame.
And don't get me wrong, I don't want to watch the show right now.
Yeah.
At all. I got to a point in the mid-90s where I was sick and tired of the show because, like you said, there was nothing else on TV.
Yeah.
There was
This
there was SWAT Cats. That's it.
This was...
I do have one question, but I'll let you finish your thought.
This is also, at least to my recollection, the only cartoon because the company that produced was TBS.
I know Ted Turner was big on this show.
Yeah. This was Ted Turner's show. And as far as I know, this was the only show that he actually made as far as cartoons. So, if this is what happens when Ted Turner makes a cartoon, well, there's a reason there's only been this one. What were you going to say?
Okay, I have a question, and since, William, you're a bit more familiar with this than I am, the topic of Captain Planet, maybe you can help me out. The glowing yellow guy. The guy who...
The radiation guy?
Yeah, was his name Duke Nukem? One?
Yes.
Because one, that's copyright infringement.
Actually, I don't know if it was Duke Nukem.
Because I know that's the video game character, but that's not my question. In the show, from my memory, his whole thing was he fed on radiation.
Right.
Yeah, I never...
And, like, he sought that out. And so he was, like, always going after, like, the waste and all that things. Like, so my question is, if he's trying to consume radiation and toxic waste, why is he a bad guy if he's trying to get rid of it for us by eating it?
Honestly, yeah. Duke Nukem, that character never made any sense to me because he was a genuine supervillain. I mean, he had radiation powers. I mean, you had that guy who was like half rat, but he was half rat, so I didn't really...
And voiced by Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, it was?
Yes, he was.
Wow. Okay. But yeah, Duke Nukem, I don't even remember. Did he eat radiation, or
I think that was his deal.
Or did he? I think he had to like create the radiation.
A radiation guy who eats toxic waste and radiation. Is somehow a bad guy, and you've got Jeff Goldblum as a rat.
Yeah.
You know, I'm starting to see what is awesome about the show. It's so bad, it's good.
I know there was some chick with a burned up face, and she loved pollution, and she had a...
Yeah, she was cool.
And she had a computer sidekick called Hal, which was the only... oh no, he wasn't Hal, it was Mel.
Mel. Yeah, Mel was cool.
Which was the only, like...
Blythe, I think was her name.
I don't remember.
I don't know. There was a number...
And there was, generic evil businessman. I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
Loot and Plunder, which was a really stupid...
Yeah, the only, his claim to fame is he's the guy who was on the intro going, "You'll pay for this, Captain Planet!" And,
I'm sorry, I have to finish it.
No, you don't.
I hate that show.
I'm sorry, Andrew, but that's why we did it first. We've talked about it. This is like their celebration of Festivus. This is the airing of the grievances right here. Okay? So, if we can say anything about Captain Planet, it gave Don Cheadle some great parody videos to make.
It did.
And it had that one cool skit on Robot Chicken where Ted Turner went crazy and painted himself green.
Captain Planet, I'm Captain Planet. Yeah,
that was probably the best thing ever.
Yeah.
To do with Captain Planet. All right, so what's next on our list of mishmashy things?
Well, next we're actually going to get into something that you do like.
Kinda, sorta.
No, I'm kind of surprised on the kind of sort. I guess I can see why there's not probably much.
Well, it's I'll get into it as soon as you introduce it.
But kind of going along the lines with people or beings with powers are going to move very fast into Sonic the Hedgehog.
Very fast indeed.
Now, you will be very impressed because this is probably, well, I don't know, but this is a game I've actually played. I've played Sonic 1, I've played Sonic 2, and Sonic 3, Sonic and Tails.
Well, then you've officially played more games than I have.
Holy cow, folks! This is history right here on the Freakacast. I did not know this was possible. You want to know, for me to actually play more video games of a franchise than Andrew.
You want to know the saddest part of all? I actually own one of the discs that have all those games plus more, and I haven't touched it.
Really? Okay then.
And here's the thing, folks.
I'm speechless. Like,
here's the thing, though, because I know some of...
Who are you and what have you done with Andrew?
I know some of you out there, like what you're saying, like, who are you, what have you done? Like, I thought you loved video games. I do. Hear me out on this. I have absolutely nothing against Sonic the Hedgehog whatsoever. Yeah. I like him. He's a cool guy. And I think his overall design, his character design, and that whole artistic motif that Sega has going with that, that alone is enough to keep that series going because it's awesome.
Right.
But it's one of those things where I still don't own a Genesis of any sort. I own almost nothing Sega has.
Right.
Maybe a game or two that they may have had something to do with.
Okay.
So I simply just didn't grow up with it.
Okay.
And I knew maybe one person who had a Genesis, and we barely played it.
Now, see, for me, as you were saying this, it's like, well, I know exactly why I played it, because Now, while I'm not myself into video games, my brother is. In fact, I mean, basically, as soon as he could speak and he could play a video game, he's like, I want the next one. I want the next one. I want the next one. So it was because of him that we ended up getting we got a Sega Genesis. And the first part, he was still young, so we got kind of little kiddish games. Like, we got the Lion King, and the one he loved playing the most was the Crystal Pony, which was, well, because it was a pony, but it was kind of like Mario Brothers.
Wait, it was a video game.
It was a video game, the Crystal Pony, where you had to go collect things, and you had to not nice to say.
So you
kill
play
things.
as the pony?
You play as the pony.
Okay.
You play as the pony. You had
Pony's made of crystal.
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know it's called the Crystal Pony. But you had pickups along the way. You had to get from level to level. It was your basic platform gaming.
To Wikipedia.
But the interesting thing is, as a result of him having a Sega, he was very much, I think he was at the right age, probably about 6 or 7, when Sonic was starting to come out. So we got Sonic, and he would play that, and I'm like, and me being not the person who likes a truly in-depth game, I like to be able to just jump in and play, and Sonic is very much that type of game. I would get in there and play, and I'm like, hey, this is cool, and it's very platform, and it's just going from point A to point B. I loved it. And so when we came out with Sonic the Tails and we could both play together, we were on there all the time. And of course, it was pretty nice. He would let me be Sonic most of the time, and he would be
That
Tails.
was nice.
And then we'd switch off. But it's just one of those things where as we were playing, I'm like, it was a number of things. It was very simple, and I think that's what I liked about it. It could keep your attention because you had so much going on, yet it was simple. You had, it was basic. You could run really fast. You had to go through the loops, and of course, then it was the task of, okay, how fast do I have to make him to get through the loops and get up as high as I can and get all the rings and everything? So it's that simplicity that I really liked about it, and that actually almost made it better for me. Plus, me and my brother are 9 years apart, and when he was 6, I was 15. You have a huge age gap, especially at that time period. But when you can sit down and play a game that you both enjoy, that you're both capable of playing, what a great way to bond with each other and to help and just to be able to spend time with each other when you can't exactly, go to the movies.
Yeah.
Because, I got drugged at Pokemon movie, and I'm just...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway,
I tried to watch the second one. And
I didn't even want to watch the first one. I got dragged to it. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, when you're scrambling for things to do together, and especially at 6 years old with,
If we ever do a Mishmash 2, I think Pokemon will be on it.
Well, I can do a show on Pokemon.
Yeah, okay, have fun with that. Anyway.
I don't want to.
Yeah, anyway, with such an age gap, it gave us something to actually grab a hold to and play. And honestly, it's the fun thing for me was I was in a Toys R Us not too long ago, and they had, I guess, the new Sonic game up on a demo. I'm like, I didn't even recognize it until I heard the music. And I'm like, is that Sonic? Oh, it's Sonic. I got time to kill. I'm going to play Sonic for free.
Was it Sonic Generations?
Probably. I don't know. I just know it was Sonic.
Okay.
I think I played about 3 minutes worth of Sonic, and I had this thing about going fast. I never used to like it very much, especially in video games and platformers, because I would always fall off a cliff and die. So I would try to play Sonic as slow as I could because I didn't want to fall off a cliff and die. And the funny thing about Sonic is if you go too fast, you'll fall off a cliff and die. But if you go too slow, you'll die anyway because the timer runs out, doesn't it? Something happens.
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah, so I never had a problem going fast until I started driving. Then I didn't want to. But Sonic was, and the nice thing about Sonic after the game was the fact you had the TV show, the cartoon. They actually have a new one out now. It's actually pretty good.
A new cartoon now?
They have a new cartoon now.
Oh, wow.
Saturday mornings.
Okay, did not know that.
Yeah.
I saw a couple episodes of the first, I think it was first 2 or one of the...
It comes on at
4th.
8 and 8:30, I think, on the CW, I think.
Okay.
Because I know it's like an hour of Sonic. It's like 2 episodes of Sonic, and then it's Transformers, the Prime, and then Justice League.
Well, I know
so I
there
get my
was...
Saturday morning cartoons on.
On CW?
Yeah.
Wow.
At least on my TV shows.
The one, jumping
channels.
around a little bit, the only cartoon that I remember watching quite a bit was, I think, the first one, like the one that people dub as the silly one, where the guy who played Urkel did the voice of Sonic.
Okay, yeah. That's probably what
and that was
the voice sounded familiar.
Yeah, and that's the one where the villain was properly named as Dr. Robotnik. They just call him Eggman now because he's shaped like an egg.
Huh.
And they had the 3 robots. Let's see if I can remember. It was Scratch, Grounder, and what was the monkey's name?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
Coconuts.
Oh,
I think.
oh yeah. I mean, and that's
Not very original, but I think that was what he was called in the game.
Okay.
I remember watching that quite a bit. So that's where my, that's how I stayed somewhat in contact with the characters. And I know there was one that was a lot better that people applaud as like one of the better of the cartoons. And then there was one where they had them playing music.
Yeah.
But I know the second one had like the iconic intro where it had Sonic, he could really move. Sonic, he's got an attitude. Sonic, he's the fastest thing alive. Like, and that one ran for a while, and that was really popular.
You know what? I think I saw a few episodes of the first series, but when the second series started, I just assumed it was more the same, and I never watched it.
Sometimes that happens with shows. Especially if you're used to one, and you're like, well, I really like this one, and it kind of looks similar. Like, I know with Brave and the Bold, a lot of people like, oh, this is like really, blue and gray, and he's all, as Kevin Smith puts it, it's Smiley Batman. I don't want Smiley Batman. Then he caught one episode and like, Smiley Batman's actually pretty good because they're making a lot of references to stuff I know, and holy cow, these people are huge Batman fans, and he's now seen the entire episode, or the entire series.
Oh, yeah.
So with TV shows, you do have to, obviously you're going to be cautious, especially if you've had a previous example with a similar show that you didn't particularly care for.
You have to give each show a chance.
Yeah, you got to give each show a chance, and honestly, the new Sonic show, they've actually been getting really intricate storylines stuff. Like they've had spy storylines and all kinds of stuff. And I jumped into the middle of the episode. I'm like, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm hooked.
Similar to Young Justice.
Yeah. I mean,
Sonic is still a very extremely popular character, even though some of his games in the past have not been very good.
Yeah. Any notable bad ones?
Oh yes.
Okay. Fill us in, sir.
Well,
Okay, or unless you have something else.
Well, I wanted to say, I'm not going to be the leading authority on this, but the reason why Sonic even exists is because, and I can't believe I went this long without doing this, but Sega really needed a mascot, and they wanted to show off their new system, its capabilities, because they were going to start competing directly head-to-head with Nintendo. Right. And they were bringing out with, I think, the Genesis, because they already had a Mega Drive at the time.
I don't remember anything before Genesis.
And so this was going to be, they were basically going,
in the long ago time,
they were basically saying, they were the first to come out with a 16-bit unit, which was the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, we want a game that can not only bring us a mascot that can show off our company, but we want to have a game that can show off the capabilities of this system.
Right.
And they came up with Sonic. The reason why it's fast is, one, to differentiate from Mario, because it's a slower pace. You take your time for jumps and all that sort of thing. So mainly it's faster paced because they want to show off the processing power.
Yeah.
The fact that there is no lag whatsoever when you play Sonic. Right. So when you zip around the whole stage and it flows as good as it does and the music is as good as it is, that's why. They wanted basically Sonic is the, hey, look what we can do game.
Interesting.
You know what, though?
And it happened to be really damn fun.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if you're giving me something that's fun to play, and you're showing and you know what, if the main purpose
showing off and having fun,
if the main purpose is show off and have fun, hell, I go to the movies for stuff like that.
Exactly. So
G.I. Joe, we just saw G.I. Joe the other day, and I'm like, you know what? It's sit back, relax, have a good time. It's showing off and having fun.
And I'm not criticizing that at all. I mean, it's a brilliant thing, and as I said, the design alone was worth enough for to get people interested, and the fact that the presentation and gameplay of it was solid made for an instant hit.
Yeah,
and really gave Nintendo a run for their money. Where they're like, okay, we gotta up the game.
We gotta raise the bar now because we just got beat out by a competitor. Okay, maybe we should do something now.
I mean, it was a close war. But unfortunately, yes, you're going to say something? William?
No, it's just, sorry guys, I'm still trying to catch the flow here because Matthew had told me before we started that you can't be talking over each other, but I'm trying to find a way to edge my words in. It's kind of like when I'm at dinner with my parents and I take a breath to speak and my mom starts talking, then I have to wait. Then she pauses and I take a breath to speak, my mom starts talking again. So
my mom does that too.
We just need flags. Wave your flag.
We all need flags.
Can I get a buzzer?
No, you have a flag. And I'm backing it up with this gun.
You can claim that part of the table.
I claim this part of the table for Spain.
Anyway, did you have a thought on that line of thinking at the moment we had? We were talking about
Oh,
16 bits.
Just that one of the first commercials I remember for Sega was
Sega!
basically,
Can't think of it now.
I had the thought, but I don't have the words. Differentiating Sonic from Mario.
Oh,
Basically
yeah.
putting Mario up as like the goody two-shoes and Sonic as like the bad boy. He's like dangerous.
He's got attitude.
Yeah, and I think
Hence the
that,
song.
and
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
honestly, I do think that was one thing that helped differentiate it.
Meanwhile, he's
Because-
not really. I mean, he just runs fast. Like,
Yeah.
that's his whole attitude.
Well, part
He
of
runs
his-
fast and eats chili dogs. Okay.
Well, part of his
What a rebel.
Part of his
chili
in-game
dogs are
animation.
awesome.
Yeah, part of his in-game animations helps to convey that. Like if you're
Okay.
like if you stand still, he'll tap his feet and be like, "Come on, let's
Yeah.
go."
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's,
You know, and he'll wait for you. You know, he'll have little animations
Oh,
when
okay.
other things
I didn't
come
know
in,
that.
so it's
Yeah,
conveyed.
This is what happens when you play more than 3 seconds of a game.
yeah. I don't like my video game characters to make fun of me.
I do. I do.
That's not true. I didn't. I do now.
That reminds me,
I've grown as a gamer.
Did you know that there's a Deadpool game coming out?
No, but I'm looking forward to it now.
Yeah. There's a Deadpool game coming out. It looks awesome.
He's a boss in one of the recent games. I
Well,
think.
he's going to be a
And he
boss
starts
in this one.
breaking the
And you
fourth
get to,
wall the
and then
whole
you
time.
get to play
Hilarious.
as Deadpool.
I think he was.
Oh, you told me about that, Andrew. I think.
Yeah, I think he was in the Spider-Man one where they had the different Spider-Men.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He was a boss and he was totally breaking the fourth wall,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
being his awesome self. I've yet to play that. I really want to play it just for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to our in-flight movie of talking about Sonic. Speaking of movies, before I get into the horrible things, he is currently, he has some Guinness World Records actually.
Sonic does?
Sonic does, yes. Let me, Perception Legacy. He is in the Guinness World Records Game Editors 2008. Those include best-selling game on Sega systems, longest-running comic based on a video game. That's still going, by the way. You can still buy Sonic the Hedgehog comics. That's been going on for a long, long
Nice.
time. I still see them every
It would be 20
now and then.
years. They were around when I was in elementary school. I think.
Best-selling retro game compilation, and he's also, in 2010, he was listed as number 15 out of the top 50 video game franchises. So, yeah, he's
Well, that's
extremely
pretty cool.
Yep.
That's really, and quite honestly, it's like, you know, when you go back to the original Inception, a mascot that we can, that we can identify with our company, that we show off what we do. Well, they did something right. I mean, if
Clearly,
you're getting
yeah.
that many awards for things, and it's been
Right.
longest running.
And sort of like, sort of a parallel to how Mario was. Basically, anytime Sega either put out a new system or they were like, okay, here's our new jump in technology.
Right.
One of the forerunners that they use is Sonic because
Right.
they're like, well, here's the template.
Here's
because,
our new stuff. We got to use Sonic.
just how Nintendo. Anytime they've got something new, you got to have a Mario title.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be Nintendo without a Mario title.
Right.
Unfortunately, they've not had as a consistent success / quality when it comes to Sonic games. For example,
Right.
I would say definitely the first numbered Sonic games are great.
Mm-hmm.
Sonic and Knuckles is also really good.
Right.
I would even go as far as to say Sonic Spinball, which is like a pinball /
Yeah,
game.
I'm familiar
That's
with
pretty
that.
good too, from what my memory. Again, I haven't played that one as much. I may
Yeah.
have played some of it offhand. But then you get to some of the later consoles.
Yeah.
I know Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2 was good, and
Okay.
those are more, that's when they started breaking into the 3D area
Yeah.
of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But then they got to the year of 2006,
And
and they made Sonic 06, trying to show off vast environments, more storylines, different, new characters, and
I'm going to tell you right now, when I play Sonic, I don't want a storyline.
well, it's
I
not
just-
so much the storyline because that's okay. It's sort of like, for some gamers, you need at least something, some goal. And I'm okay with that. Like, it's like playing Mega Man. It's not like, oh, I have to play the story.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know, hey, I'm doing this for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice to have a reason other than random adventure. Don't always have to need
True,
that.
true.
There's plenty of games where just random stuff is fine.
Yeah.
But it helps because it gives you a sense of drive and direction.
Right.
And, I'm fighting a boss. Well, why am I fighting a boss? Sometimes it's nice to know you're fighting a boss for a reason other than, oh, I'm just fighting a boss.
Yeah.
And so that's not the problem. The problem is basically they did not program it correctly.
Okay.
The voice acting is not really very good.
Okay.
The story is really crap. And it was pretty obvious that they did not play test it
Oh, wow.
because it is glitchy.
Oh, wow.
That's not good.
And by the way, the capper, it's not fun.
Oh, wow.
It's not fun at all. In fact, as I said, I didn't play it. Never had the system to play it, but I've been recently watching, and it's been ongoing.
Okay.
There's this show on YouTube called Game Grumps, where two online celebrities, one is Aaron Hansen, the other is John Jafari, Ego Raptor and John Tron, respectively.
Okay.
And they do a show together, and they review games, they do playthroughs, and they're playing Sonic 06 in its entirety.
Okay.
And let me tell you something, just from that.
Just from watching them play it.
And these are not guys who don't know how to play. These are guys who know video games. And they're like, wow, this game is so bad, it's horrible. But then they get to points where like, I don't know what to do. This game is not fun at all. And then it's like, why is this puzzle so bad? Why am I fighting this boss again? Why won't this boss die?
Yeah.
How many freaking hits does it take?
Oh, I
Please.
hate those
Oh, look, it loads. And by the way, here's some of the funniest, and proof that they did not test it. They get to a person they got to talk to us for a story event or just to get the thing going.
Right.
They talk to them. It has to load. The person has one line of dialogue. It has to load again.
Oh, wow.
And then, maybe, if you're lucky, you'll get to the gameplay. If you're not wandering around a city trying to figure out where you go because it gives you no direction.
Oh, wow.
And it's not like they have arrows. It's literally like, here's a city, there's an exit somewhere.
Oh, those are always fun.
So they messed up pretty badly.
Nothing like having a maze.
And and they have been trying, and Sega has been trying desperately to make up for that. And they have not been doing a very good job. The last couple of games still have not been very good.
Who are they making games for now?
Well, as William was pointing out, they no longer have a console of their own.
Right. Now,
So they make games for everybody.
Do we have any idea why they don't have a console?
It basically, their last console was the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And by that point in history, you had them directly competing with not only Nintendo, who had finally switched over to the CD-based system.
GameCube, I think?
GameCube. They finally went to the CD-based, which was holding, the cartridge was holding them back.
Right.
And when we talk about RPGs, that's extremely important, and I'll tell you about that later.
Okay.
Which is why I have to bring that up for that episode.
Understand.
But they were also competing with PlayStation now.
Right.
PlayStation 2.
And PlayStation 2.
Which was Xbox?
Kicking.
Did Xbox
not yet
play yet? Okay.
Not yet, but that was in the works.
It was coming.
And at the time, PlayStation was kicking everybody's ass.
Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, part of the 3 minutes of Sonic that I played was about, I don't know, a minute and a half maybe of a demo on the Dreamcast.
Okay.
And part of the reason it was only a minute and a half because I had no idea where I was supposed to go or what I was supposed to do. I don't think I could even move the character. It was weird. But yeah, it was just a bad demo. We got some good free demos for our Dreamcast. We had one.
And so, they basically realized it was no longer cost effective to stay in the console game. So they became just an exclusive developer, I
thought Dreamcast was CD based, was it not?
It was, but unfortunately, it was good.
Kind of a mix because they had the CD and then they also had a memory cartridge,
which was fine because they had because they were still using memory cards at the time.
Yeah. PlayStation had that. They have the memory cards.
They had memory cards. That wasn't really the issue. I think the problem was the Dreamcast. On seeing the PlayStation 2's setup and hardware and what its capabilities, the Dreamcast was not totally inferior. But the problem was with the PlayStation 2 being as good as it was.
Yeah.
Because not only was it a game station, it was also a DVD player.
Right.
And with also the fact that Xbox was in the works and coming out pretty soon at that point.
Yeah.
They decided, you know what, it would cost too much money to make a new console just to compete with this.
Yeah.
Because the Dreamcast was not going to have the capabilities to keep up with everything.
Plus, you also had retailers, and I don't want to name any by name because you're still in business and listening to our podcast, who would lie to the consumer. I remember they told my mother that the Dreamcast was going to play games for N64 or GameCube and all that. It was going to have everybody's games. It was going to play DVDs. It was going to play CDs. It did play CDs. And even Sega said that you would be able to use the memory cartridge as an individual little, almost Game Boy type thing. It had buttons on it and everything.
They did use that part a little bit.
But I could never figure out how that thing worked. I could never figure out how to do the mini games on that thing. It was,
They did utilize something with the memory thing to incorporate in their games. But the thing is, they simply could not keep up. It was not cost effective, so they went exclusively into making games.
So Sonic.
So Sega still exists, the company, they just make games.
Yes, they still exist, thankfully,
Yes,
because
they still exist.
and they do make some pretty good games.
Yeah.
I can't name any off the top of my head because, well, I mean, that's the trouble with going cross-platform.
Yeah,
is because like it's no longer
the name.
I know the good game. They made good games to the Dreamcast.
Yeah,
they
They
did.
made Sonic Force 2112. It's a good fighting game. They made a lot of good fighting. Actually, Soul Calibur was Dreamcast.
So
Soul Calibur 2 and 3
is
were
Soul
good.
Calibur then a Sega game?
I believe
I think
so.
it was Capcom. I thought.
Yeah, it might have been. I mean, well, I do know, just to bring it back,
Or not Capcom.
I think the best version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was on the Dreamcast.
Oh, that was a good game, too.
Okay.
So I mean, and plus, I don't think it ever came to Nintendo.
I don't know.
It did go eventually on PlayStation 2. I know because I have
It
that.
should have gone in. I don't know why it wouldn't do Nintendo.
Because that, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
Capcom is weird.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But really, that's all I have to say much about Sonic. I mean, Generations, from what I've heard, is pretty good. And that's kind of like a throwback of like, we're mixing old and it's basically like modern Sonic met retro Sonic
When?
in Sonic Generations, the game.
Oh, in the game. Oh, interesting.
We've lost Matt.
Oh.
He wants us to move on. So let's move on.
Number 3 on our list of things that are awesome.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I don't know the rest of the theme song, but Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
There's a lyric to it, but I don't really know it.
Will we find our brave recruits? Da 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 da.
Da 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 parachute. Oh, it's stuck in his own parachute. Tomatoes, tomatoes.
I almost remember this show.
This show came on early
I don't know.
90s,
Something in the 90s.
around the same time as the Toxic Avenger cartoon,
Well, you know that. Well, I won't
which
say that.
honestly,
I do vaguely remember. But I'm glad you brought it up because
Avengers.
Toxic Avenger, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and all those other weird action figures that we've seen from your Ninja Turtle collection.
I never had Toxic Avengers.
There was
I said
an Anthrax Ninja Turtle figure.
I said
I just want to point that out.
I have that figure, actually.
Exactly. The weird action figures you used to have from Ninja Turtle. That's what I'm talking about.
He was an evil ant named after a type of chemical weapon.
We get
it.
Anyway.
Would not, you get it, but
yeah.
Kids would.
But anyway.
you could not make that figure now. That's the point I'm trying to
There was a lot of weird
Does
stuff
not work
going
in a
on in the
post-9/11
late
world.
80s, early 90s. So Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, I mean, I didn't even realize at the time that it had a source material of anything. I just thought, well,
Yeah,
this is
I
a
didn't
weird
either.
show.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they're tomatoes with eyes and mouths. That's kind of messed
And
up.
they eat people, and it's awesome.
But I didn't even see them eating people. I just saw them like
Well, I think they're
attacking
supposed to,
as
right?
like as a mob or something. Maybe.
Maybe in the movies.
Maybe in the
but
movies.
I've never seen them.
Yeah.
Well, I always assumed because they're basically giant heads made of vegetable matter that's what they did. I mean,
Well, I'm sure that's what they do.
They
but,
didn't use weapons, what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
By the way, folks, we're going to attempt to talk about something we know next to nothing about. Isn't that fun?
Okay,
Here's what we do know. They're tomatoes who kill things and attack them. Hence, Attack of the
sometimes
Killer
in that
Tomatoes.
order. Here's
Yes.
everything I know about Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. There were at least, I believe, 2 or 3 live-action movies came out like 80s or 70s or something.
I don't know.
There's a bad guy named Dr. Gangrene who I believe made the evil tomatoes.
Yes.
He is not a mad scientist. He is slightly angry. And he has a nephew or a grandson who's blonde and stupid. I don't remember his name.
And talks like a surfer.
Yes.
I remember that.
And there was there were 2 protagonists in the show. I feel like it was a teenage guy and a teenage girl protagonists in the show.
Yes.
Only because every show in the late 80s, early 90s had those characters in it.
It was almost like mandated by law.
Pretty much. I don't remember their names. I
And
don't
then
remember what they looked like. I don't have any proof that they were actually in the show.
And then when we got further into
They
the
were
90s,
in the intro.
This is based on faith. And then there was also a squad of people whose job it was to fight the Killer Tomatoes, and they were led by a guy whose parachute was constantly open, and yet he was never in a plane.
Maybe. I don't know. I just remember the intro, and I do remember Dr. Gangrene, and he made the Killer Tomatoes. I was going to say, you brought up the teenage girl and teenage boy. Those are definitely in, well, I don't know if they're in the show, but they're
They
in the
had to
intro.
have been in there, right?
They had to have been in there because they were in the intro.
Because we needed
And as
every
we've
main
learned
character
anything,
to
if we've
introduce us to
learned
the world.
anything, if we've learned anything from 80s TV shows, it's the fact that if it's in the intro, it's in the show.
not necessarily.
Except the part where the Lionos
Actually, that's true
shooting lasers
because
from the sword of
well,
Owens.
They've had plenty of cool things in intros that never show up in the show.
That's true. Freak is always a good example of that.
Yep.
In fact, I don't think anything in the intro is in the show, but okay, maybe that's a bad example.
I think there are monkeys in wearing barrels in the show.
I don't know. I don't remember.
I feel like I saw that in a cutaway.
Maybe.
He might have even been making.
Okay, here's what I kind of remember about the cartoon.
Okay, Killer Tomatoes.
Now, I cannot talk for anything about the movies at all,
Yeah,
period.
no.
Other than the fact that the only reason that they made a second was because Muppet Babies.
Wait, what?
Muppet Babies.
Okay,
Actually,
wait, no, hold on, William. I just, hold on, my brain needs a moment to actually process what you just said.
I'm glad you didn't know this.
So let me understand this.
Okay.
So they made a film, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes.
Okay. And because of Muppet Babies,
who
they
referenced
made a
it.
second one.
Yes.
That's like saying that if it weren't for my horse, I wouldn't have spent that year in college. Which makes just as much sense.
Well, if
Do you
you
understand? Can you enlighten me, please?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Do you remember Muppet Babies
Of course I do.
and how they like to use movie footage?
Yes.
One of the movie footages they used was a scene from Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, where basically Fozzie was trying to do stand-up, and it was awful. Mm-hmm. And so the audience, which happened to be the Killer Tomatoes, were flinging themselves at him.
I forgot that part.
And
That may have actually been
and apparently that
the
had
only
such
image that I saw.
I remember them showing
Like
a
maybe.
clip of the live-action movie during the Muppet Babies, because the Muppet Babies was a cartoon about the Muppets
Yeah.
as babies.
we got that.
Yeah.
that's the title.
That's my first podcast, y'all. First podcast, period. I'm a little podcast newbie here. I'm just trying. I didn't know if
We'll give you a pass. We'll give you a
introing
pass.
everything before we talk
No.
about it.
No, we can reference whatever we like,
just go.
unless someone has like a
Yeah.
moment. But anyway, so
Yeah,
because
right now.
I would
and
like to
for
say
whatever
the king
and
is
for
alive.
whatever reason, people liked that segment and were like, "What's that Killer Tomato thing?" And apparently, enough word got out to the the people who make B movies was like, "Let's make another one," and so they did. And because the second one was so
I
popular,
love that
they made the cartoon.
There's a group of people who make B movies, like the people who make them.
Well, here's
Because seriously, they're probably in like a group of like directors, like say, yeah, we make these movies all the time.
I'm
They
sure.
work for Sci-Fi Channel now.
Yeah, exactly. Roger Corman, man.
This is the curse of knowing just enough to talk about it, but not enough to be clear.
Yeah.
There are only 2 episodes
But
of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes that I remember. One was a 2-parter, or possibly 3. I don't know because I only saw one part of it, and it was where the tomatoes actually succeeded in taking over the world, and Dr. Gangrene got bored and then withdrew his troops. And I remember that episode also because the dumb blonde surfer guy conquered Antarctica.
you know
With
what?
no resistance whatsoever.
I actually remember that.
The other episode was when a new mad scientist came to town. New angry scientist came to town, and instead of tomatoes, he used, I think it was like kumquats or something. And but see, like,
Wait. Q. Ooh, kumquat.
Which you wouldn't get, but that's okay.
It was like tangerines.
Matt got it.
There were these orange fruits
That's
that
all I
didn't
needed.
look that didn't.
It was just
They weren't
perfect
tangerines,
timing.
they weren't oranges, but they looked like those. I don't know. Anyway, by the end of the episode, he goes just as crazy as Gangrene and wanders off into the horizon, and we never see him again. To my knowledge, like I said, I
either
saw
way,
2
all I remember is the intro. I don't remember even seeing an episode of the show.
I barely remember the intro. I know there were these little tiny tomatoes that were like, I guess the comic relief. They were like
Killers?
only constants because
No, I don't know.
they were like a gang of tinier. Well, I say tiny. The tomatoes that Dr. Gangrene used to take over the world were like, I don't know, maybe 6 feet in diameter,
But there's still
5,
copyright
6,
law
7
on
feet in
this.
diameter. About the
I
size
have
of a
no
Honda
idea.
Civic.
Because if we could use this is we could have fun with this.
I'm sure I'm sure there's some copyright for the cartoon,
Yeah.
but as for the movies, I have no earthly idea.
Actually, I think they might have
The only thing I remember from
they
the
might
cartoon,
be, the movies actually might be public domain.
they might.
I'm thinking they are. I don't know why I'm thinking that. What is
With
loose in
today's-
my brain?
With
Why do I know
today's
this much?
technology, you could do some really cool Attack of the Killer Tomatoes where the tomatoes grow like the size of a building.
Well, I made up my own version, Tiger the Killer Blueberries. It does as much sense.
I remember that from the intro that the girl is actually a tomato.
Oh, that's
Okay.
right. She's like a mutant that the doctor made.
Yeah, and I think
It's like his daughter, quote unquote.
something like that. But she turns back if you hit her with salt.
Wait, what?
And
Oh, yeah!
And the only way to turn her back into a human is if you sprinkle pepper on her because she'll sneeze.
Oh, yeah. But it's like she doesn't turn into an evil, like,
She just turns into
tomato.
a
a tomato plant. Yeah.
Okay,
like
so
a little potted plant. Like a little, like, 1 foot high.
Something like that.
So you could get a really sadistic person and just be like, oh, look, here's some salt and...
Technically. And I know, and from
That's
what I remember...
dark, dude.
Yeah.
They're tomatoes, it's food.
But she's a person.
I know, but that's why I said sadistic.
Yeah, that's true.
And the only episode I remember was they had a vampire episode.
Okay. Vampire tomatoes?
Yes, but here's the catch. Like, they had, like, there was a... I don't know if it was a reoccurring character, but they had the network PC / network censor.
Yeah.
It was like, no biting. Like, but I'm a vampire. What do you want me to do? And it's like, a vampire with bat wing, a tomato with bat wings.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you want me to do? I'm a vampire. I'm supposed to bite him on the neck. He's like, kiss him on the neck. Do that. That's better. He's like, all right. So they were the kissing vampire tomatoes.
I remember that, like, that reminds me of an Amazing Spider-Man cartoon.
Anyway.
And that's all I remember.
But anyway, yeah, there was a gang of normal-sized tomatoes for, I guess, comic relief, and sometimes they wore...
There was a gang of
hats
ninja
and stuff.
thieves who thwarted the tomatoes by eating them.
There should have been.
And they did so by putting them on a pizza. They
That
had shells, too.
I would love to see that crossover. We could actually get to see the Leonardo slice something, as opposed to just break a robot.
Well.
That episode will be over in 5 minutes. Ingredients! Radical.
Honestly, Leonardo may not be able to...
There's our film right there.
Wow.
There's our film right there.
I would watch that.
All right, moving on. What's next?
All right, so moving out of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
And thank goodness.
Which is a very, very crazy idea. We get into...
Sorry.
We get into...
I forget what number 4 is.
Okay, that's why I'm doing this. Moving on to the realm of space and bounty hunting with women.
Cowboys of Moo Mesa?
What?
No, but we need to talk about that at one point. No, Metroid.
Oh!
Yes, Metroid.
I don't know the song for Metroid.
I don't know the song for Metroid either.
It's just...
Dun, dun.
Cowboys of Moo Mesa is about as valid as biker mice from Mars and Street Sharks. But anyway,
Actually, that
Metroid
and
is
that's
what we're
how I
talking
would rank.
about.
I can't believe you remember Street Sharks.
Dude, I was all about the Street Sharks.
I always
for like
forget about them.
the
because
6
I
months
remember
they
them
were
for a
out.
year. I'm reminded of Street Sharks now every week. I don't know why.
My friend had some of the figures.
I was
I
all
had
about
the
him,
puppet, which was bad.
but
really
only because
cool.
I really wanted to make an awesome costume with it. Because I liked that look.
Street Sharks. They had a terrible song.
Nothing stopping you.
I know.
Okay, so what were we talking about?
except my
Metroid.
sanity.
Metroid was a game that came out on the NES original.
Now this is
It
where
did.
I'm going to just kind of sit back and let you two hash this out. I've never played Metroid.
I've only really played
I'm sure
Metroid 2 and not very well. 'Cause it
I'm
took me a
only,
year
honestly,
to get
Andrew,
the good stuff.
everything I know about Metroid, I know from talking to you.
Well,
And
okay
I never
then.
beat it. So, have you ever beaten a Metroid game?
Because Hunter
Andrew?
had the
Yes.
Metroid game,
Nice.
and I mean, the only thing I do remember is like he had it, and I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, it's like a robot. Okay, what do? Oh, you don't do anything. Okay, here.
Well, you shoot
Because you have to understand, if it wasn't a platform game at the time, I
But
was
it
not
was a
interested.
platform game.
That's the problem with
Not
Metroid.
the version he had. He had a newer version that was like 3D. And
Oh, those I wouldn't mind playing because those it's okay.
and
here's
if
the
it
thing with-
didn't tell me what to do, I wasn't interested.
You were playing one of the Metroid Prime games.
Okay.
Well, honestly, Metroid 2 for me had that same problem where I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and that's why it took me so long to beat it. Keep in mind, guys, I only bought like one new game maybe every couple years.
So you were playing the one on the Game Boy.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Dude,
Just to clarify.
I have owned 4 systems, quote unquote, in my life, and those are Super Nintendo, Dreamcast, Game Boy, and Game Boy Advance.
That's 2 more than I
All
have.
4 of them are gone. I don't know where the Game Boys went. I don't know where the cartridge for Metroid 2 went. I mean, I gave it away, quitting the game in frustration, which I did for most of my games, frankly. But yeah,
that was not an easy game.
It was not because it was a puzzle game, and
Well,
the cartridge made it look like, and the booklet made it look like it was action adventure. You go in, fight monsters, cool, right? But no, you gotta like solve puzzles and like.
Well, it's all of that combined, really.
Yeah, it's puzzling, platforming, and action adventure.
Which really, if you know what you're doing,
Yeah, exactly.
is a damn fun game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's fun.
But let me back it up a little bit, shall we?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Metroid is not the name of the character.
It's not.
Okay, which already, I'm like, huh? I think I kind of knew that, but...
No, the Metroid is an evil alien.
And the thing is, you've already said things, but like at the time the game first came out, and I don't want to be too technical, but like early, I don't know, like in the 80s or 90s when it was on the NES, so that time frame.
Okay.
When it first came out, like in the instruction booklet, they told you the name was Samus, and that was it.
Yeah.
And they referenced, he's doing this, he's doing that. Mm-hmm. But you're not really given that much detail on who Samus is, other than the fact that it's a bounty hunter, and he's been sent to this planet because the evil Mother Brain, the leader of the space pirates, is causing trouble and amassing an army. You've got to stop it.
Okay.
So that's your objective.
Right.
And so you go onto this alien world, and you're fighting all these cool things, going and trying to upgrade your armor and gear to match the terrain and the enemies you're facing. So you can get Ice Beam, which is extremely handy.
Yeah.
And
that was extremely handy.
You get the Wave Beam, which can go through walls and does a ton of damage. You get missiles and all these other cool things in this first game.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of platforming to do. So there's a lot of, area hazards, like there's hot lava. Pitfalls aren't really there because it's, not only do you go left and right, but you'd also go up and down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of climbing to do.
Yeah.
So, plenty of interesting, cool-looking enemies you can fight until finally you get closer to your goal, which is destroy the Mother Brain and destroy the Metroid, which is a alien being, which is almost like a parasite that if it latches onto you, it'll suck your life force.
Oh.
And if it stayed on to you, it'll suck you dry to the point where you dry up and turn into sand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The Metroids.
So they are
the space pirates want to use the Metroids to get power.
They want to use them as weapons.
Right.
Because really, if you unleash a horde of those things on a planet, don't have much to worry about. It's like, hey, have fun, guys.
Yeah.
Wait an hour. All right, we can move in.
That was the weird thing about the Metroids, because they weren't the hero or the villain. They're really just these mindless creatures that...
Essentially, and you're sent down to destroy them and the leader trying to use them as a weapon. And when you've beat the game, when you've destroyed the Mother Brain, which, by the way, is a giant brain in a jar in the first game, with a lot of defenses, because if you're going to have a leader, you want it to be really intelligent, giant brain.
Yep. Message from the big giant head.
Yes. You then go through the credits, and then massive shock. There was a woman underneath that armor. And in the 1980s, late 80s, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because you had the very first female protagonist in video games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a big deal. Unfortunately, that was lost on me because I always used the cheat code.
Yeah.
Because Metroid is a hard game.
Yes, it is.
I'm sure now if I tried to play it through honestly, I could figure it out.
Yeah.
But as a kid, because I knew the cheat code, which was printed in Nintendo Power, so it's not like I was truly cheating.
Yeah.
And I even remember it was Justin Bailey and a lot of dashes.
Justin
Bailey.
Wow. That's
And
crazy.
by doing so, you are basically put at the best position where you have the all you have to do is go back to get the Ice Beam because you need that to defeat the Metroids. Got to freeze them and shoot them with 5 missiles. I remember that.
Okay.
And so that's all you got to do, and then travel down to meet Mother Brain. But the advantage of using Justin Bailey is you got to see Samus without her helmet and in a different suit. So I always knew it was a girl.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, okay.
So that whole surprise was lost on me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was a sexist buffoon or what, because I never played the original Metroid. When I had my Metroid 2, I always assumed Samus was a guy. And I think in the booklet they even used female pronouns. I assumed it was typos.
Yeah. Well,
8 years old, guys.
Well, the other thing, no, but William, that's actually a good point. You assumed it was a guy because that's what you've been seeing in other video games.
Right.
You really
That was the point.
You really had no reason to think it was not a guy.
And unlike what you were seeing in like other forms of animation and other forms of, science fiction entertainment,
Right.
Samus's armor is functional.
Yes.
It is not designed for the ogling mind. Now, if Hollywood made her armor, yes, you would be able to tell that she was a woman.
I would hope not.
Yeah, I would hope not too, because
I would hope not, because it would be stupid.
Because honestly, of the Nintendo franchises that I would love to see as a close to the source material as possible movie, Metroid's one of them.
And you know what would be really cool?
An amazing.
You know what would be really
because
cool?
that would be amazing.
You know what would be really cool, Andrew?
Can we make that movie?
If they made the movie, I think it would be a brilliant idea to not know that that Samus was a female until the very end. I realize that there's a lot of video game fans out there that would know that already, but the mainstream audience wouldn't.
I feel like that would be spoiled by like morning shows.
Yeah, I think that would be
it would get out.
immediately debunked. Because then the thing is if you're gonna have an hour or so long movie, in the game she doesn't talk for most of the games, only until the later games does she speak.
Right.
Plus they're gonna cast someone as Metro.
They gotta cast somebody as Samus. You can't have
Is it Samus or Samus?
Samus.
Oh.
And most of her missions are solitary, so it's by herself. And in some of them she'll have contact with like on her onboard ship computer who will say make sure you don't do this, or this is what's going on in this sector of the thing. It helps if she's talking.
That's true.
You can't have an hour plus movie with no dialogue nowadays.
Well, there was The Artist.
That would just be tough.
That was a silent film, though. I think they still.
But anyway, so that was
saying. I thought it'd be an interesting idea.
That would be a difficult movie to make. You would
bring,
almost have to have a squad because you have to.
You bring up a good point. That would be kind of lost in the shuffle. That would be just because of the.
It'd probably be better as a web series. That's not important right now.
No, but I think it'd be. I think just the idea of a female bounty hunter in space that's sent to take out these Metroids, to clear it out.
That's a movie right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's and the thing is as long as you have
space pirates.
Exactly. You have and they're literally called space pirates,
starring Johnny Depp.
And you have two henchmen. One is named Kraid, which is almost like a dragon-like creature. Mm-hmm. Except he doesn't have wings, and the other is Ridley, who does have wings and is a dragon-like creature.
Yes.
So you have a land dragon-ish thing, and then one with wings, and they're in almost every game. Ridley more so. He's more the iconic villain.
Nice.
Then there was, of course, Super Metroid, and then with Super Nintendo,
which is hands. Okay, I got to gush for a second.
Okay.
Do it.
It is hands down one of the best games on the system.
Okay.
Period. I would rank that above almost any Mario game on it.
Oh, wow. That is high praise coming from you.
Are you putting that over Final Fantasy III? I don't know. That final battle with Kafka is pretty good.
That's a tough one. It would be close.
I mean, it's totally different genres, too.
If as far as a game that I want to complete in shorter amount of time, I'll go with Metroid.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Because in...
Although for me, I could probably beat Final Fantasy III way before I could do Metroid.
Yeah, but
the nice thing about Super Metroid is it's designed, and the part of the challenge is for you to beat it fast, because the reward for beating it under so many hours is you get to see more of Samus, which just sounds funny, but hear me out.
I heard about that.
Hear me out.
She is in various states of undress, apparently.
If you bleed it let's say in an hour or less, which is tough, but I've done it.
Yeah.
She's in her the suit that she'd be wearing underneath her armor.
I got you.
Like a workout clothes kind of thing. Yeah. So it's not like she's in a bikini.
Yeah.
Going, hey guys, but no.
Yeah.
There is one where she will wear a bikini though, from what I understand.
Something like it.
Hey, that could just be a rumor. That could be somebody trying.
That might have been on the NES if you beat it under 30.
And so you do get that reward.
See her in all her 8-bit graphics.
And then if you beat it in a certain time, he'll remove her helmet and be good job, and then beyond that, it's just her in her armor.
Right.
See, there is some incentive, and it's totally doable. I've done it. And then the cool thing about Super Metroid, and I'm skipping over Metroid 2 because 1, I don't own it.
Yeah.
And 2, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But really, it's a solid Game Boy game, one of the better ones on the original Game Boy system. Mm-hmm. Super Metroid is a good game. I would say it's the fun of exploring the planet that you're on, and it's part throwback, part total new, because you go back to Zeb's, which is the planet you go to on the first game.
Yeah.
And what's really cool, the thing that I have got to be awesome, is the very beginning of the game. Well, not the very, very beginning, but when you get on the planet part of the game.
Yeah.
You first start exploring the place where you were last. So you get to see the husk of where the mother brain used to be. You get to see like the blown out part of the level where you had cleared last.
Oh, neat.
Looking for signs of life. Like, okay, I know they're here.
Yeah.
Where do they go? And then finally you find some signs, and then you start exploring all these parts of the planet you were never there.
Oh, neat.
And just things start opening up, and you see old villains and new. And it's not, but it's one of those things where it seems huge.
Yeah.
But then with the idea of like, okay, you got to beat it in under 3 hours to get the best ending. It's also compact.
Right.
So it's extremely expansive, but it's easy to navigate because it has a great flow. Samus is not sluggish. She moves very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Very agile, and all her weapon and armor upgrades make total sense.
Yeah.
They help you navigate better. And basically, anytime you get something new, it adds to the game rather than be like, oh, look at this, it's neat, and then forget about it.
Right.
And she can turn into a basketball.
which is needed.
What?
The morph, like when she rolls into a ball, it's the morph
Okay.
ball, so you can get through
She can
smaller
roll
areas.
around things.
Okay.
So her armor has multifunction, like, one lets you travel through water quicker, and one can let you be in, areas of high temperature so you can survive the heat.
Yeah.
Because you got to go, in the depths of the planet.
Cool. That
There's-
sounds like a job for the emulator.
So, I mean, it's...
Not that I'm
It
advocating
is the
piracy in any way,
intro,
shape, or
like,
form.
I'll let you see it. The intro of the game, like when it's booting up, is legitimately spooky.
Okay.
I'm
And
definitely
it
getting
gets,
an Aliens vibe.
It's partly there's a big inspiration from that actually. The creators of this game directly had they came out and said Aliens and Aliens 2 directly inspired Metroid.
Okay.
And so I know this is a long-winded way of saying it, but Super Metroid is freaking awesome.
Yeah. You're like, Metroid rules.
I highly, highly recommend, if no other game of Metroid is ever played, play that one. Because it is a pinnacle of Super Nintendo gaming.
Of course, other Metroid games were made, which
There
we
were.
will go over or go to number 5.
I'll mention them.
Well-
like Metroid Prime is the one that you played where it's the first-person shooter, which was on one hand, I wasn't into it at first myself because I want a platformer.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's a natural progression because you have platformer. Why don't you try something new?
Yeah.
Try something that makes sense though for that character. And after playing a little bit,
shooter does make sense at least.
And she had visor upgrades that time. Like you could see in the dark, and I think there was heat vision. I think.
yeah, and of course you
I had a
still
friend
have
in college. who had to do
I
it.
think maybe at the time I don't really remember. Hunter briefly
well,
showed
if
me.
you're just thrown into it, of course you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can't really say for sure.
And
But,
Hunter had a bad habit of just throwing me into a game and hoping that I survived.
the last game to come out has not had good praise. It was called Metroid Other M, and it's one of I have a habit of not criticizing games if I've never played them unless I know for sure they're horrible.
Yeah.
So I
Is
can't
that
say
the one where she is an evil twin?
no. That
Or
happens.
that was Fusion.
Fusion, I think it starts in that, but she has the evil twin. It's not as cliche as it sounds. There's actually a reason for it, but I think it's
sure
also in the Metroid Prime series as well. It makes an
okay.
appearance. No, Other M, the people had problem with it because she was talking too much, apparently, where you had voice acting.
You're like, at all?
Well, I mean, she had, dialogue in other games. Like, she wasn't a mute,
Right.
but it was always in text.
Right.
So, and it didn't hinder the game. I think the criticism for Other M was the fact that these cutscenes and dialogue are hindering the game. Like, we want you to shut up so we can keep playing.
Oh, yeah,
Stop,
I hear you.
so when it breaks the game flow, then it's a hindrance. And
Right.
again, I can't comment other than that because I haven't played it. So it would be unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to say about it other than that Super Metroid. Thumbs up.
Okay. Since you've had your moment to gush,
Yes.
now it's my turn to gush.
Be my guest, sir.
Now, we've talked about Legos before. I'll occasionally bring them up if there's a new lineup or something else, but I've never really gotten a chance to talk about some of my favorite lineups.
Really? I've never heard you talk about Legos
Yeah,
before.
I know. I know.
You like Lego?
Yeah, I know. It comes as a shock. Because,
It's
in
Matt the Builder we're talking to here.
in the
Matt the Builder.
let's see, I started when I was 3, so in the 27 years I've been building with Legos,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot longer than I realized.
Started when you were 3?
Yeah.
Sad.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's
not my parents' fault.
impressive and sad at the same time. I don't know why.
I don't view it as sad.
It's not really
Well,
sad. I don't know why
if
I
you
said
heard the
that.
Lego podcast, it's because when I was 3, my parents got me the Lego Duplo train, and it was a whole train.
Oh, yeah, the Duplo, yeah. Okay.
And when if you've got a 3 or 5-year-old, a Duplo is great. I mean, because it's the bigger blocks, but it's the same system and everything. It's still interlocking, and they've got the figures. And
I think I was doing Duplo with 3 too.
Yeah, and they do it, and Lego does a great job, and they really do make their products accessible for all ages. But my parents went out and bought like a cool styrofoam model tunnel and everything, and so I was hooked. Yeah. Well, Lego doesn't do just trains, and obviously they've got so many lineups, and probably the most tricky thing for fans of Lego and casual fans of Lego even is the fact that they change their product lineup out pretty much every year. Which can be...
I feel like it's been more frequent since 2000.
Oh, yeah. It's been more frequent since 2000.
Before, I think it was every 5 years, maybe?
No, it was still every couple years.
Because Blacktron, I feel like, was out for...
Oh, yeah. Blacktron was out.
Freaking decade.
And Blacktron was one... I have a love-hate... I have a love-train... Well, I have a love-train. I have a love-hate relationship with Blacktron.
Blacktron was awesome.
Let me fill you in. I'm glad he's here because now I got somebody to talk to about this.
I'd love to ride the love train.
The space Legos...
I said the black train.
The space Legos were awesome.
Anyway.
You had the...
What the heck is Blacktron?
Okay, all right. Let's fill him in. Okay. Let's back up a hair. Okay. In the 70s, okay, and we've talked about this before, as a result of the success of Star Wars, space was everywhere. It was, people were pushing for space education, folks going into NASA, they were, anything space related, that's why Moonraker, while the book had nothing to do with space.
Really?
Yeah, the book has nothing to do with space, but because of the success of Star Wars...
I kind of want to read the book now.
Yeah, because of the success of Star Wars, they said, put James Bond in space. People want space
with
movies.
Green lasers.
Put him in space with lasers, because that's what people were wanting. Because, I mean, if the first blockbuster film is about in space and it's got lasers, clearly that's what people want. Because, it's the 70s, that's what they were thinking. They didn't realize there were other elements. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so Lego started coming up with their space. Well, in the 80s, primarily the mid to late 80s, they started developing different branches of space. Mm-hmm. And so you didn't just have space, you had M-Tron, which was the magnet guys.
You had Space Police.
You had Space Police. Now, I have, some of the recent Space Police, which they've actually done really, really cool. Like I told you.
Those.
Yeah, like the Brick Daddy, where he's got like the Pimp-mobile, but he's got like the alien face. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, I'll agree. As a casual Lego fan, I'll agree that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I will tell you guys right now, if anyone out there in the interwebs has... See, I always wanted to collect Blacktron because in my mind, whenever I played my space Legos, Blacktron was the unseen enemy.
Yeah.
That was like, because they looked just so cool, like they can't.
But they did, and you like the little basic space guy that I had as the magnet. Yeah. That's pretty much what they all look. They just changed out the colors.
Basically, yeah.
And they had a different symbol. And
Blacktron's color scheme was black, white, and they had the yellowish, greenish visor.
Yeah, yeah.
Space Police was red, black, and then they had dark green.
Well, it was weird because they had like a red, almost a black blue, and then they had like the red visor. I'm like, why did they have red?
They had red visors?
Yeah, they had red visors.
I had a Spaceman Lego with a red visor, like a Saturn symbol. I don't know where the heck I got it.
Let's see, the Saturn symbol, I'm trying to think.
It was like a little
like
thing.
This, right?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
No, it was
the
like...
Saturn symbol was kind
this,
of...
and then it was like, whoop, little ship right there.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And then he was... I can draw the guy.
Well, that's okay. I don't need
he had
that.
A little,
I don't need that.
Red visor.
Anyway. The symbols really, I don't know. Okay, I think they all had a similar planet with a ring around it symbol.
And then there were the Spyrius.
Spyrius was kind of cool.
Explorians.
Spyrius was the first one to have mechs, where they actually had like a robot. Yeah,
they did.
Because they had like a mech with like robot. It was the first robot you would actually.
I remember when they came out with the alien. The first alien, and I had
the UFO.
I had a UFO.
UFO was probably my favorite space because their heads literally looked like the guys. It reminded me of the guys from Independence Day.
Okay.
And the really cool thing is, they didn't just have the head; they had this helmet, this shield thing.
Yeah.
Which, what I've loved to do is I've taken all those shield things off of my UFO guys because I only had about 4 or 5, and I would pick the Rebel pilots from Star Wars sets, put the shields on them, put the Rebel helmets on them, and give them blaster, and bam, you have a StarCraft Space Marine, which I'll get to later.
Nice.
And that's one of the greatest things about the different themes. And we've just touched on space. Even within space, you've got all these different branches of things. And kind of touching on what William said with the Space Police, the original Space Police, it really was not that visually interesting, but they had a lot of really cool ideas. Like they had a base, and you had like a main kind of cruiser thing. It was kind of like a paddy wagon, basically. You know, had different cells you could put them in. You actually had different like laser. Like the one thing they did really cool was like your jail cells, instead of bars, it was like laser beams.
Oh, that's cool.
You know?
But yeah, if anyone out there in the interwebs has the big butt Blacktron with the 3 orbs.
Oh yeah,
that was always like $70 at FAO Schwartz, and I knew I would never
you
own
could
it.
probably find it on eBay.
I know.
There are folks
for like
that will
$700.
Actually, you'd be surprised. Actually, you'd be surprised. There are folks who do sell older sets, and a lot of times they're just trying to get rid of them, or they're trying to recoup their money. Like they're not going to sell
Don't tell me that, because I will go back and I will buy a Ice Station Odyssey.
Oh yeah,
because I had almost the entire
They had Ice Planet.
Which pretty cool. Was set in the far future year of 2008. I want to say,
I think so.
Or 2002, or something like that.
It was pretty funny how much they thought it was in the future, 20 years, and it's like, yeah.
Well, what's really cool about that set in particular, when we had the giant blizzard in '92.
Yeah,
I
remember
took
that
out
one.
my Centaurian sled, or whatever it was called, and had him basically explore the tundras.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
That is pretty cool.
Might I interject with something real quick?
Yes.
We're almost 2 hours in, and I just now realized I didn't say our theme song is by songstowearpants2.com. You can find us on the web at afelson1.wordpress.com. That is, again, afelson1.wordpress.com.
afelson1.wordpress.com.
We are on iTunes and Stitcher. Both of those are podcast things. I'm sure you know how those work.
If you don't, they're very easy to use. Type in Andrew's Brain in iTunes. You can pull us up. Subscribe today.
Leave us comments, all that good stuff.
Write us a review. I mean, honestly, we'd like to get our word out. We need your help to do that. So we need you to write a review so the people that are curious can go on there and see it.
This is Andrew. I'm going to interject again, saying, stick around for part 2. Had to cut it off there. And, yeah, we had a lot of fun. Just had way much to talk about. But we'll get back into it in the next episode, and we'll pick up right where we left off. So see you then. Freaks out. The content of the Freakacast is copyright to Andrew Felson and Matthew Puetz. All characters belong to their respective owners. A full list of music used will be provided on the website. This podcast is for entertainment use only. Copyright 2013. Check us out on afelson1.wordpress.com. That is afelson1.wordpress.com. We are on Stitcher and iTunes. And Facebook under the Freakacast and Freakout Entertainment.